are back. Rahubat, Muisar, Rahubat. We are back. We are back. We are back with more Wu-Sabat. We are back. We are back. We're back with more Wu-Sabat. All right. It's been a while. It's been a while. I know it's been a while. A lot of people have been asking me where you been, what's going on, what's going on, where you been with the lectures. Are you still doing lectures? Where are you? I'm right here. I've gone nowhere. I know I'm sorry I haven't been posting, and it's a lot of reasons for that. I've been doing my work, though. I've been in this for far too long now. As you all know, those who listen to me, I'm not going nowhere. We have a lot of work to do, so I'm not going anywhere. So I am sorry for those who've been waiting and looking for more postings, more lectures, more discussions. It's so important, especially in the day and time that we're dealing with. In fact, we kind of want to talk about that, hence the title, Love and Unity is so important in this day and time with so much world chaos out there. So we have to develop that love that will unify us, because this is the only way we can deal with the chaos that we see in the world that's all around us. And this is something the master teacher has stressed over and over and over. And many student teachers have been talking about, love and unity. We've been saying this for quite some time. But the problem is we have not united the way the master teachers wanted us to unite. We have not unified. And the question is, why not? And it's because we yet to divine love. It's the only way we're going to unify. Is you have to fall in love with blackness, as I like to say. You have to fall in love with your people, and have a strong, passionate desire to work together to solve our problems. But it's impossible to do that without ashuk, divine love. You must have divine love. That's the only way. And so we want to talk about that. We want to talk about what is divine love. What has the master said on this concept of divine love? What does it mean? How do we obtain it? And he's written about it. And so we're gonna go over the things that the master teacher's written about what divine love is, how to obtain divine love, and what's holding us back. What's stopping us from divine love? The master teacher has explained the number one thing that is stopping us from embracing divine love is the ego. The ego, the human ego, ego. The ego is what divides people and keeps people from unifying. So we're going to talk about that, and in hopes we'll get to the bottom of this. So I know there's so much problems out there, so much challenges out there. We're in this together. We're in this together. Only we can solve our problems. No one else. We're the only solutions there is. And Sabaeans, being that we as Sabaeans, as Nuwaubians, we have the most profound doctrine on the planet. It is the one powerful level or force of knowledge that can change the conditions of all woolly hair melanated people. And not just us, all people on earth, if they truly understood the power of our culture, our ancient culture, Wu-Sabat. So I want to say, before we get into this, for those who do not know me, my name is Peti Sina Tabtu Re'e, and I've been over a 35-year student teacher of the profound doctrine of the master teacher, known to us as Paa Nabab Yaa-nanan, also known as Dr. Melakazi K. York, who has been teaching us our ancient culture we identify as Wu-Sabat, also known as Wunuwap, which stands for those who make decisions based on sound right reasonability, based on the principles of Ma'at, based on the wisdom of the Hutri. In essence, our culture is about being in harmony with natural nature. As Willa here, melanated people, as African people, we've always, prior to the invasions of 500 years ago, right, before the Europeans came, when we lived in harmony on a continent, our culture was about being connected to nature, natural nature. You know, and the culture of Wunuwap or Wu-Sabat or Noon culture goes back to ancient Nubia, ancient Kush, we call it, ancient Napata, ancient Egypt, right? Our ancient original cultures was Wu-Sabat. Ancient Egyptian culture was based on Wu-Sabat, Nupu, Noon. That's why they taught that existence comes out of the waters of Noon and Noon Tot. That was a part of the ancient Egyptian teachings. This is a part of the ancient Kushite teachings. We understood these concepts. And we've forgotten our original culture. And that's why the master teacher came, to restore our original culture so that we can get away from the Western cultures. The Western cultures are just the opposite. They live adverse to nature. They don't think about being connected to nature, being in harmony with nature. And we argue this is why the world is suffering. This is why the world is in chaos, because humans have no connection to the earth. And so they poison the earth. They flood the earth. They create chaos in the earth with all the wars and just the level of injustice that we see everywhere. Natural nature is to be in harmony. The goal is to live in harmony, not chaos or chaotic lifestyle, but this is what we see in the world. And we argue this is because the Western culture is dominating the planet. You know, everyone, you know, the culture of capitalism, where you turn the planet Earth into a commodity, where everything is for sale, where there's no real respect and honor anymore for anything or anyone. That's a recipe for disaster. And when you look at the world, look on the news and you see what Trump is doing, you see chaos. They're getting on them today, you know, April the 4th, 2025, about, you know, these tariffs. He's charging all of these foreign countries import tax on goods, on products that they import to the United States, which means the American people are going to be forced to pay more for goods, products that they need. It's one thing if you're going to do that, but it's not like they're raising the salaries of people. In fact, I see what Trump and them doing. They're firing people by the thousands, trying to get rid of. You claim he's doing it to get tax cuts to you know, these super rich people who don't need it. It's kind of weird, but again, we're in chaos. Things that are being done that makes no sense, and the only way to deal with that for us as Sabaeans is for us to get back to our culture. So my job as a Sabaean is to help guide those who want to get back to a culture of harmony, peace, love, and tranquility. This is the culture of Wu-Sabat, and this is what I've dedicated myself to teaching. So, you know, and one of the things that we talk about in the culture of Wu-Sabat is understanding our cultural core, you know, our core cultural principles of Wu-Sabat. Number one is Ashak, right, which is divine love. That's what we're going to be talking about today. Number two is resurrection. Your goal of a Sabaean is to transform themselves back into goddesses and gods by learning to open your third eye. Number two is resurrection. Number three is the wisdom of the Hutri and Ma'at. The Hutri stands for our divine mind consciousness. This is what our ancestors identified. The principle of the Hutri represented our divine mind, the consciousness of existence itself, the creative force. And Ma'at represented that existence is based on order, balance, justice, righteousness, right? Principle number 4 is as woolly hair melanated people, we live of, for, and by each other. That was the traditional cultural concepts before we were invaded by the Western countries 500 years ago. Indigenous cultures on the continent and the Americas, everyone lived as a community for the betterment of everyone in the community. It wasn't based on individualism that we see, on the planet today, based on capitalism, socialism, Marxism, all the isms. Our culture was rooted in Ma'at, a principle out of South Africa, Ubuntu. Respecting humanity. So number 5 is morphic resonance / matrix, that everything is based on sounds, tones, colors, vibrations, existence itself. And as woolly hair melanated people, we were in tune with that, these harmonics of nature. We've lost that. And as the master said, we've been under a hypnotic spell for the last 6,000 years, and we've forgotten how to be connected to nature. This is what our discussions are all about, how to reconnect with the harmonics of natural nature. Principle number 6 is Leviathan. This is what we've been at war with. These are the negative, adverse spirit forces within nature that's causing all of these problems. These spirits is what possessing humans. And of course, because we've lost our knowledge, we don't know anything about spirit forces anymore. Principle number 7 is soul and spirit. Your soul is your emotional force. Your spirit is your life force. We don't even realize that we have a soul force and a spirit force. You hear about it in religion, but European or Western, science tell you that stuff is not real. So our people, so much we used to know that we don't know, which is the cause of all our suffering, because there are things that you must know in order to deal with how we're living on the planet. Ignorance is our worst enemy. Principle number 8 is health. You don't have any health, what else matters if you don't have good health, right? And the first key to health is a positive mind. As woolly hair melanated people, you need much sunlight. Sun is the source of our health. Water. The body is 70% water, so you have to have water. Fasting. You eat one day, you fast one day. You eat one day, you fast one day. We because we're constantly eating, we're creating imbalance. That's why in America they say it's such this country has an obesity problem. People are constantly been taught to eat 3 times a day, every day. Body's not designed for that. Right? Dr. Sebi taught us we have to have a herbal diet, taking proper herbs for better health. Exercise. Can't have health if you're not properly exercising. And one of the other keys to health is rhythmic breathing. The master teacher came out with the breath book to learn how to breathe in rhythm. All of these things are key to health, along with meditation, concentration, prayer, and chanting. All of those are keys to health, which is principle number 8. And principle number 9 is identifying the creative force. We identify as Pa'ut. So that's what we call the creative force in ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt, ancient Kush. We said Pa'ut. It meant all, the creative force of existence, right? And then you have the concept of the Smat, and the creative force, the essence of the creative force is made out of what we call Achach. The Greeks, when the Greeks were in our culture, they learned the word achach or ach. They translate it as ether. You go to China, they call it chi. You go to India, they call it prana. We say achach. Or another word we use is sachem, life force energy. That's what all of existence is based off, this life force energy. And this life force energy is what creates all. It's conscious. This is living consciousness. These are things we used to know. Of that, relearn these things, right? Now, goals of students of Wu-Sabat: raise the self, fight Leviathan and work to build Sabaean family, we have to get our own lands. We have to set up our own societies. That's the only way we can get away from the chaos that we're seeing in the world under, controls of Western society. But we can't do it until we restore our ashuk, our divine love for oneself. No one's going to come together. We don't have this burning desire of ashuk to live our culture. It's not going to happen. What does it mean to be a Sabaean? A Sabaean is someone who's thoughtful and cares, someone who's helpful and honest, someone who's responsible and hardworking, someone who demands justice and honorable, someone who's righteous and humble, someone who's excited and cheerful, someone who's loyal and committed, someone who is kind and considerate, and someone who's neat, clean, and orderly. This is what it means to be a Sabaean. And quote from the master, he says, all power begins in the mind, be it political, economic, military, or scientific, because the body is just a framework and tool for the mind. Therefore, the prime power is mind power, from which all other powers develop and mature, including the power of liberation. So he says 9 ether develops 9 reason, right? This creative force of 9 ether is what gives us our 9 reason. And 9 reason develops 9 knowledge. That's how the master was able to write the books, write knowledge. He has 9 knowledge from 9 ether. He harnesses into his body, right? So, and once you have 9 knowledge, it develops the 9 mind, right? 9 mind consciousness, which is a prerequisite for woolly hair, Nagato, mental, and physical liberation. This is the only way we're going to liberate ourselves once you restore your 9 mind. And you can't restore your 9 mind without harnessing 9 ether energies into the body. And for the last 50 some odd years, the master teacher has been teaching us how to do it. And we're going to talk about why aren't we getting this done? What's going on? Obviously, it's Leviathan that's stopping us, the forces of Leviathan. Our purpose, number 1, you must take action each and every day to free yourself of 6 ether spirits inside and out, which includes Black people who are possessed by these spirit forces. Number 2, acknowledge and fight 6 ether from promoting capitalism, the gay agenda, miscegenation, the so-called equality of the races, and racism, white supremacy. And number 3, learn, live by, and promote the laws/rules of natural nature, and each one teach one. Word of advice, do not judge this doctrine by watching the behavior of Dr. York nor his students. Judge this doctrine by the effectiveness of the information, aka information, that you personally put to practical use. This doctrine is based on self-authentication. Know that we are not preachers, but teachers who are dedicated to answering questions until there is a meeting of the minds between the teacher and the student, who can then work in unity, which is the only solution to our problems. Unity is the only solution to our problems, right? This is what I've been doing this for now since 2016. No one has reached out because why? Why have no one? All the people have listened to my lectures. No one has really reached out and say, "Hey, let's unify. Let's work together. Let's build so that we can bring the culture to a reality." It's one thing talking about the culture; it's another thing living the culture. But you're not going to do it if you don't conquer the ego. The ego is what divides us. The ego is what separates us, and we're going to talk more about that. This science of the ego. That's keeping us as a divided people. True qualities, or the qualities of a true Sabaean who represents Ma'at. Number 1, truth. You must be a seeker of the truth if you are a child of justice. Number 2, desire. We must have a burning desire to live and teach the facts. Number 3, willpower. Our willpower empowers our fight for justice. Number 4, consistency. Those who are consistent are guaranteed to obtain their goals. Number 5, momentum. Consistency creates momentum that builds energy. Number 6, energy. Energy is the source of all power which our bodies require. Number 7, focus. When focus is combined with energy, goals are easily realized. And number 8, it's power. When the mind is focused and full of energy, you now have the power to achieve your objectives. And number 9, fight Leviathan. Leviathan, we're dealing with racism and white supremacy, which is kind of what Trump and them are pushing now. Self-determination, right? Leviathan, that's the way you fight it. But us having our own, creating our own society, our own communities, living up for and by each other, and acknowledging our genetic superiority. As woolly hair melanated people, the more melanin dominant you are, the more energy your body possesses. Life is about energy. The more energy you have, the more you can achieve and do things. Anyone who studies the black woman and the black man, you see that we have an energy like no other. You see it in athletics, you see it in the music industry. We possess an energy that no one else has. This energy that somehow Michael Jordan is able to do what he does. Michael Jackson is able to do what he does. Floyd Mayweather is able to do what he does. When you line up 100 black men of high athletic skills to 100 men of any other race, you'll find out 9 times out of 10, we will possess more energy, more and be more effective than anyone else. You see it in track and field. Things that require a lot of energy, no one can compete. What's doing that? It's the melanin, family. It's melanin. And what is melanin? Melanin is just a molecule that it's the solid or the physical manifestation of the sun energy. Everything, all energy comes from the sun. And woolly hair melanated people harnesses the most energy from the sun. That's why we're outdoor people. But we have to understand our power. If we have that kind of power, that power has to do with our consciousness. We're not just dominant physically, whether it be in athletics or dancing or singing, but we are dominant intellectually. How do you think we built those pyramids? Obviously, we had because the pyramids dealt with a high level of mathematics, high sciences. And you see that play out in what's that movie, Hidden Figures? I had pulled that up too. That movie about those sisters right here. Hidden Figures, about the black women who did the mathematics back in the 1960s for the space shuttle, for the spacecrafts, to be able to go into space. They had to do the mathematics on how to do that and how to get those shuttles to land, the mathematics to do that, because they didn't have supercomputers they have today to do the math. And so they needed people. And imagine that, black women doing the mathematics. You have that brother, Dr. Ivan Van Sertima on Blacks in Science. I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Ivan Van Sertima. Powerful brother. Blacks in Science. He does a whole lecture on that. On all of the blacks in science, the achievements. Because we were told that we're dumb. That we're dumb, that we can't compete intellectually with the European or no one else. And that is such a huge lie. The amount of inventions that we have made during slavery that the slave masters stole from us because we couldn't claim our own inventions during slavery. The United States would not be the United States without the consciousness, the brilliance of black people. And this is one of the reasons I argue, and Master talks about this, why they've drugged us and poisoned us with poisoned food and drugged us with alcohol and actual drugs. This is what's been destroying our minds. So you today you predominantly see us in singing and dancing and entertainment, but you don't see us or we're not known today as people of high levels of intellect when we are that. But some of the problems, or why we don't see it as much as we see it in the entertainment world, we see us physically dominate in the entertainment world, but we don't see us physically or mentally dominating the same way. And I argue it's because of the from the diet to the drugs. All that stuff reduces your ability to think and reason. It affects us greatly, especially because of also economic conditions. We don't have the same economic conditions to training and knowledge. We're at a disadvantage versus people who come from better households. Families with high levels of income are better and able to train their children to be better. When you come from low income families, it's harder to get the necessary knowledge and training. This is what we're working on. This is the whole point of Wu-Sabat, is to re-educate our people, to restore our divine consciousness. Things that, to put us back. What do we say? Or to put us back on top as a people. One of our slogans, let me go back here. One of our slogans is, we talk about it all the time. The master teacher says, never forget that knowledge rules ignorance. That's why during slavery, they practiced ignorance on us. They forbid us to have any real knowledge because, the more ignorant you are, you can't compete. You can't compete. This is what this whole thing with Trump is talking about with the DEI stuff. They're seeing black people elevate. They don't want to compete. They don't have to compete with us. They got rid of this. What's this brother right here? This brother, general. Highest this right here. He was the top general, and they fired him. Trump and them fired this brother, and all because he was complaining that when Joe Biden was president, he was talking about how blacks in the military don't get equal opportunity for advancement, even though they're qualified. And he was saying that blacks need the DEI program so that they can get access to positions, right, that they normally would be looked over by because they're black. And so those DEI initiatives were important for black officers. And so he was promoting that. And that's why as soon as Trump got elected, he fired this brother. And this was the top military guy. He's the second black person, I believe, to have that position. The first one was Colin Powell. And in the 1990s, Colin Powell was the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And this brother, I think he might be the second. I'm not sure. I believe he is. Sharp brother. But anyone who has to enslave a people to get them to work for them to build their wealth obviously are people who don't want to have to compete. So they have to cheat. So you disenfranchise people. You make it harder for them to compete. And that's kind of where Trump represents that part of the white race in America who don't want to compete against us. They see us getting all these positions and it's fair. It's all fair. That's what the immigration stuff is. White people, they feel they're losing their power, and they are. and they're trying to figure out what to do. What to do, because they are losing. They're falling. They see it. With the rise of China, the rise of India, and Africa is beginning to rise. You see it all over the world. They can't stop it. They're trying to figure out what to do. There's nothing they can do. We're in a new day and time, and as the master teacher said, we're in a new cycle, a new era. But the problem is that they are gonna go. They're gonna become more and more chaotic, and you don't want to be around them. And that's what our discussion is today, about how to get from up under their chaos. You should not want to be a part of their chaos. Well, what do? What we do is it's love, and then the unity will come. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. This love and unity. So here in this book here, before, what page we on here? Page 5. This is a scroll that came out. I always like to show you guys the book so you can reference the books where the information is coming from, the maxims of Ya-Nun. And all you student teachers out there, if you're talking about the doctrine, you should always quote the books. Let the people know where you're getting the information from, because I hear a lot of student teachers, they just say stuff and they don't show people where they're getting the information from. We ain't making this out clear, we're not making this up. The books. And also should help brothers with sales. So people can buy the books and read it for themselves. So let them see. So I go out my way to show people where I'm getting this information from. Okay. So that's a notice to all student teachers out there. If you're teaching right knowledge, let people know where you're getting that information from, so that also that they won't know you're making it up. That this is what we're taught, that we teach by way of the master teacher. So he puts here in this book right here, says the key to our salvation is love, and you need to come together, right? So that love and unity. He says the lock is our heart, and the key is the doctrine. Thus, love and unity will free me. It is your task, your test. You must use the tools you have been given. Each one teach one. You have no excuse. And as the prophecy says, all ayanat, all eyes shall behold him. No one will be able to say they did not know, yet they took not the time to know. And so refer to the Holy Tablets, talks about this. He says it expired in the year 2000, which is the Holy Tablets, along with the Bible and the Quran, in this cycle of the hereafter. The first 1,000 years of the hereafter cycle as we renew our story, right? So we're transitioning. I've talked about this many times before. We're moving from a third density family into a fourth density. Here's a smack circle. We're in the third density. This is the bottom. So we live in the solar system. Universe is vibrating at a certain density. And so the universe goes through cycles, and it moves higher vibrations to lower vibrations, fourth density. And it takes about 1,000 years for it to totally interface. So from 1,000 years from today, anyone who's on a planet, or all species that be left on the planet Earth, will be vibrating on a fourth density. If you're a species that can't make that shift, that dimensional shift to a high vibration, you go extinct. Right? You go extinct. Or those people will have to reincarnate. They'll die, and they have to reincarnate back into a planet that's vibrating on a third density. That's important to know. That's important to know. The master's been talking about moving to the fourth density for the longest. And I don't really hear too many student teachers talk about this, about moving into the fourth density. Wait, let me just pull up. Let me see. Pull up a book on that, just so you can see the master. He's talked about it many times for a long time. He came here to teach us how to raise our density, our vibration. Everything about existence, the universe, is based on harmonics, tones, frequencies, vibrations. That's why he introduced us into that, to the word, the concept, morphic resonance. That is, and our ancestors all used to understand this knowledge and knew how to move with the changing cycles, and to elevate your vibration with the changing cycles. But we mortals, humans on Earth, as woolly hair melanated people, Nuwaubu people, we forgot our own ancient sciences. We forgot how to make that shift, that genetic shift. And that's why the master teacher's here, to teach us how to make that shift, to increase your vibration. And what's keeping our vibration locked to the third density is the European culture. This culture. So here's the book right here. It's called in like 1995. It's a powerful book. Really powerful book. He talks about it right here. Let's see. God consciousness, or the first stage being in the all. This is on page 107. The first stage of being in the all starts at the fourth density, up on to the ninth density. It is awe-inspiring to humans of the third density. So humans are the third density. The goal is to get to the fourth density. You have to increase your vibration. That's why the master teacher said you have to clean yourself inside out. Stop eating flesh, meat. I have a bad diet. I'll admit that, with really bad habits that all of us have to work to break our bad habits. But the foods we're eating locks us in. The fact that we don't fast, we don't do the exercise, all of these things will help raise your vibration. The most important is the chanting rituals, the meditation rituals, our prayer systems, our 939. We're supposed to recite our affirmations. Our affirmations are designed to connect your consciousness with the creative force, with the universe. This is how you raise your vibration. And once you're consistent with that for 30 days, 90 days, you'll feel a separation. You begin to notice senses that things you weren't aware of. Your senses heighten, and you begin to realize the energies all around you. And that's the process of raising your vibration. This is key. This is key. But the key is to break away from the third density and to move into this fourth density. There's another book the master talks about this. Which one is it? What is Nuwaubu? Let me see if it's in this scroll right here. He talks about it again. And I'll show you in several different scrolls where he talks about making that that shift, that this dimensional shift. Is it here? Right here. This is what is Nuwaubu scroll on page 10. 9 ether forces first visit the minds of their posterity, descendants, because they know that nothing can be done right unless the mind is right. The mind cannot be right unless it has accepted the right knowledge. It says you are out of your mind, and in his mind. You all share in a mental reservoir which vibrates on the fourth density. Everyone partakes of the mental plane, intellect, ideas, creation. You vibrate on the third density and have your own portion of it called my mind. So see that we are vibrating on a third density. We're vibrating on a third density, but in order to make contact with our ancestors, right? The culture Wu-Sabat is being in contact with your ancestors, your grandmother, your great-grandmother, your great-great-great-grandmother, your great-great, and those who have resurrected into the higher densities. We're connected to them by blood. You're still connected to your ancestors. This is something that was always acknowledged in our traditional culture, in African culture, Native American culture. always calling on your ancestors, communicating with your ancestors, right? They can hear you, but you can't hear them. Why? Because you're vibrating on the third density. They're on a fourth density up to the ninth density. So you can't see them or hear them, but they can see us and hear us. This is what the culture, Wu-Sabat, are re-educating you on how to make contact. Once you realize we are part of a greater galactic, you will seem like nothingness to you. You just realize your journey here on Earth is for 60, 70, 80 years, and then you move on to a higher realm. You won't get caught up in the chaos. We'll be more focused on developing our culture and not focus on the chaos that's going on. Because we're caught up because we live in someone else's culture. So that's why our people are suffering right now. Because we don't have to be suffering. No, they hire you, fire you whenever they want. Why do we subjugate ourselves to that? Because we refuse to develop our own cultural systems. That's why. Now, granted, the teacher had to come for that reason to re-educate us. But I'm showing you what our goals are as laid out by the master teacher. I'm going to show you another book. He talks about the same thing. I want you to see this. I want you to notice. Study these lectures. People keep asking me, where you been? What's going on? Where's the lectures? Listen, I've been talking about this same information constantly in many different ways. But you have to study the lectures. You have to follow the instructions that I'm putting out in the discussions. You have to take this. Remember, knowledge proves ignorance. You have to study the lectures. Read. The master teacher keeps telling us this. Read. Where's it at? Right here. This is a Paa Nadjaru. What's this? Page 28. We'll go to page 1. Paa Nadjaru, called The Age of Adamite Past, right? This is a book Master put out. Go to page 28. Right here. Very last page. He says, I, Paa Nabab Yaa-nanan, was there, which is here, when the word be was spoken. I watched nothing become something. I am Dahutri, three times great. And I return every 24,000 years to rewrite your future with Nuwaubu. You'll become Mudhatu, ones of Dahutri. And it is time for your rebirth, your resurrection from mental death. My miracle is in my pen. Read. Teach. Raise the mentally dead mummies back to true Anakhtwi, eternal life. Now I have given you what I incarnated to give you. Let it be your salvation. You have to study the doctrine. You have to apply the doctrine. You have to study the doctrine. You have to apply the doctrine. He says it again. This is another scroll. What's that? Page 21. Where are we at? This is a Master Secrets. Me and Matt, True Justice. Master Secrets number 29. Very last page. Same thing. He says, I ask for nothing of you, only that you read. Don't believe me, check things out. Know the truth, so that knowing the truth will free you. All must be done before 2030. We have less than 5 years. You have 4 years to make the lift. 4 years to make the lift. It takes about 90 days to transform yourself, to clean yourself inside. Actions. Listen, I know it's not easy because I've been trying and I've been very distracted. So one of the reasons why I haven't been doing lectures, to try to be focused on my spiritual work. But I do realize my work in putting this information out. But it would help if you guys would be, putting information in the comment section so we can have that conversation. Because I always respond to comments, even if I'm not doing a lecture, I'm responding to the comments. But you have to read. You have to study. The master teacher keeps telling us this. There's no other way to get this right knowledge. Here's another one. Let's go. What's this page? This is 13. Master Secrets. This is Master Secrets number 15, right? The ones who lie and the ones who deceive. Master Secrets number 15, part 2. Go to page, let's see, 13. What does it say? Let's go to paragraph 274. It says here, well, Wu-Sabat is that truth. And if you accept it, study it, live it, speak it, you will be free forevermore. Break the spell of ignorance and the hypnotic spell of amnesia of who you really are, not what you accept or believe you are. Right? So here again, he's been saying this for eons. And you have to study the doctrine. You have to study it. You have to keep reading. You have to study it. The goal is to raise your consciousness. Because the whole point of it is for you to apply it into your life. If you're not applying it, then what's the point? It's just a bunch of information. It's not knowledge. If you don't apply, it's not knowledge. It's just information that's not utilized. And how can you apply something if you don't truly understand it? How can you understand it if you don't study it? There's no way I can do these lectures if I didn't study the doctrine. I'm constantly studying the doctrine. It's an everyday thing. It is our way of life, so that you would know how to utilize the doctrine. There's no other way. There's no other way. Another quote. What's this? This is Purity and Neatness scroll. Where am I at? Page 9. Let me show you. This is an older scroll. The other scrolls were newer. This is older one in the 90s. This came out like 95, 96 or something. The Purity and Neatness scroll, right? And the Holy Tabernacle or the Maintenance of Health, right? This is an excellent book. It covers a lot of area. This particular scroll. Excellent book. Right here. What is Nuwaubu? This is on page 5, right? It says, what is Nuwaubu? Nuwaubu is the science of sound right reasoning, and its followers are the sons and daughters of sound right reasoning. The science of Nuwaubu tells you just how and when. Belief is ignorance. To ignore the facts intentionally or ignorantly. If one has to believe, it means he or she does not know. And if one does not know, that is ignorance. Hence, belief is ignorance. And religious beliefs without the facts is ignorance. The most deceptive word in religion is believe or belief, because a person can believe anything, and this means that a person can believe and be 100% wrong. But knowledge is knowing, and knowledge is correct information. To know gives one confidence, but belief infers doubt. Knowledge is always logical and it reasons out. Nuwaubu is also right knowledge, right wisdom, and right understanding. It is the best knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, and the equalizer anywhere and anytime. It will be disclosed when the minds of all Nagado, Nubian, woolly hair, non-ether, woolly hair people with the ability to identify themselves have been qualified by accepting and diligent study. Here's the key: have been qualified by accepting and diligently studying the scrolls. These scrolls are not the science Nuwaubu itself, but is the diligent reading and diligent study and profound understanding of these scrolls that will open the mind, tear down barriers, and qualify the mind for the universal science called Nuwaubu, facts beyond any doubt. As the gates of mental confinement opens, ignorance will flee, and right knowledge, wisdom, and understanding will become the keeper of your minds. Right knowledge, wisdom, and understanding are Nuwaubu. And Nuwaubu is the spiritual science of all woolly-haired people throughout the universes. Do you hear that, family? You have to study the doctrine to be qualified for the science of Nuwaubu. What is the science of Nuwaubu? Understanding the forces of nature. This is why our ancestors had forces of nature traveling interdimensionally, being able to levitate, being able to see into other dimensions, being able to use telepathy. It goes on and on. You can't be qualified for that level of science until you have been resolved as a Nuwaubian, until you've been resurrected consciously and understand the power of the culture Wu-Sabat. Once you really understand it, then you'll work night and day to work with anyone for us to restore it. That's why no one contacts me, because no one's ready for that. No one's really ready to live the culture, because unfortunately, I argue most students don't comprehend the culture, the doctrine really. They don't see the power of it. They don't realize how powerful this doctrine is, and you won't be able to do it if you're really not truly studying it. To see, and that's what my work is. That's why I do these discussions that try to help people understand how powerful this culture, this doctrine really is, and that it can transform all of us. But as we say in our affirmation, we succeed as a part of all, we fail as individuals. We succeed as a part of all, we fail as individuals. You have to remember that, family. We succeed as a part of all, we fail as individuals. You have to remember that. That is a must. I want to bring up, I was talking and I didn't forget about where our goal is to move from the third density to the fourth density. I showed you. Here's another book that talks about it. Your goal is to increase your vibration. When you move your consciousness and your essence to the fourth density, your intellect expands. You become in tune with higher senses, more aware. Our dormant abilities would be restored, as the master teacher talks about. Us having these dormant abilities that our ancestors had, that we've lost because of the spell that we've been put under, where we've lost knowledge of who we are. Right here in this scroll right here, where we are on page 76, this is called the baptism scroll. I hope you saw it. Page 42. This is an older scroll, the baptism scroll, that the master put out back in the 90s. Let's go back to page 42. What does it say right here? Which looks like a replica, blah, blah, blah. Let's see. This is similar when you're newborn in the world there. Once you leave this body, you will return to us beyond the stars, right? When people transition, those who resurrect, you move up. Like the whole goal in ancient Kemet, ancient Kush, is to move spiritually back into the higher realms. Our ancestors are in the star system of Sirius, right? We call it Septu. In the star system of Orion, or we call it Saha, right? So Asar in our ancient culture represented Orion star systems, Saha, and Aset, Aset, she represented Sedeptu. That's where we get the name Sabaean from. Those who come from Sedeptu, right? Also, it represents those who connected to the sun children of the sun, right? Sun culture. So when you resurrect, your goal is to reconnect with your higher dimensional family. They live in those realms. So it says, once you leave this body, you will return to us beyond the stars, which you call the rapture or being redeemed. There will be etheric beings who will help you to the other side. This is why we do the rituals, family. This is why we do our prayer systems, our chants. It connects you with our family on a higher realm. They hear us. They see us. So that when you listen to people who have near-death experiences, people say, yeah, my grandmother was there. You know, they talk about family members being there. But you have to connect with them. You have to call out to your great-grandparents, your great-grandfather. Remember this, family. Let's keep reading. The people who are part of this rapture or pickup will go to Malakut, the abode of the Elohim, we said the Nathar, the fourth density called heaven, also known as Jinnah. That's where they are. They're vibrating on the fourth density. So there's all this people hear about extraterrestrials, ETs, and they're in these spaceships. In these spaceships, they're able to function unbelievable to humans, right? There's no technology that humans have that can function the way these extraterrestrial crafts are. 1 minute you see them, next minute you don't. They say these things are traveling 20 miles an hour. Your eyes can't even pick it up. They're all in the atmosphere, but because we're vibrating at a low density, we can't see them. We can't perceive them. As you raise up in vibration, then you can tap into these higher forces. But I just wanted to show you, family, how important it is for us to get to this third density. How do we do it? Through Ashuk, divine love. Here, Master talks about this, Ashuk. He talks about Ashuk. This is an older scroll. This is one of the Sufi scrolls, our spiritual teachings back in the 1980s. This was in the 1980s, right? This is the 1980s. Where am I at? Page 33. Let's go to page 1. The sons of the green light, right? This is a scroll about our spiritual teachings in the 1980s. Here we have Ish in Arabic, Ashuk in Nuwaubu. Same word, different dialect. The original language was Nuwaubu or Sabaean. They got this language from us, and they changed the dialect of it and created their version of it called Arabic today. Arabic is just the bastardized version of Sabaean, right? Nuwaubu. That's where Arabic comes from. And so we say Ashuk, they say Ish. It's really the same word. It means the same thing, divine love. Now, what is this divine love? Ish is divine love, excessive love, spiritual passion, and complete devotion, a supreme fervent love. This divine love is much more powerful than the love that one has for all others, right? So you have the word hub. That's another form of love. It's affection for that which pleases and delights. And you have wood. That's used for friendship and affection only. To encompass the meaning of Ashuk, or they say Ish, one must be willing to forsake oneself, body, and spirit, and become one with the omnipotent. You have to become one with the creative force to tap into Ashuk, family. Do y'all hear that? I'll read it again. Let's see. One must be willing to forsake oneself, your body and spirit, and become one with the omnipotent, the sole source from which Ashuk originates, right? The cosmic essence of cosmic consciousness, existence itself is Ashuk. And you have to connect with that. You have to become one with that again. A servant of Ashuk or love is for Pa'ut. Their pains is their remedy, their cure, are or is Pa'ut. We say omnipotent. Today we say Pa'ut. All individualism is dissolved and all ego is exhausted. You have to give up the ego. There's no way you can be in a body of a shook without giving up the ego. This is why we haven't come together, family, because people are not willing to give up their ego. And we're going to talk about ego and make that clear what we mean by that. Because there's good ego and then there's the negative ego. I'm talking about the negative side of ego. When you focus on the self. Now it's important to focus on the self for your own development, but not to get caught up in the self. And that's where the ego becomes adverse. And we live in a society, we've been raised in Western culture that teaches you to be self-absorbed, to live by the ego, because that's what capitalism is all about, right? Making money, you got to hustle and do this. Everything is about the individual here. So it accentuates the ego. All their entertainment, award shows, all these accolades that they keep giving individuals, everything is to award the individual and not the group, not the whole. That's how Western focus on yourself and not the whole. You see that? And so it's very difficult because we were raised like this to break away from that kind of thinking and to think of the whole. So I go back. Why you think we haven't, really come together? This is why, because everybody is stuck in the ego, literally. And that's been the greatest challenge for the master teacher, to give us to come together, to unify. But we can't do it without Ashuk. And you can't get Ashuk unless you tap into the creative force, doing the spiritual work, which then you have to give up your ego. You have to give up that individual mindset. And individuals aren't ready to do that. That's been the issue, family. So he says a true Sufi, right? This is what we, the spiritual essence of Islam is the Sufis. Today, we're part of the ancient Egyptian order, right? That's where Sufism comes from. For those who don't know, it came out of the spiritual teachings of ancient Egypt, ancient Kush. Sufism, for those who don't know that. A true Sufi seeks the omnipotent, created with unrelenting favor, sincerity of heart, and complete servitude. He or she has purged themselves of their lowly desires and draws life-giving energy from the inexhaustible source that maintains us all. That source is Pa'ut. You do that through the rituals where you harness this energy, this non-ether energy into yourself, and you become one with it. This is the goal. This is how you harness Ashuk. So let's go to another scroll where the master talks about this. Another scroll right here. Page 8. A celestial being or a terrestrial being. Are you a celestial being, one who's connected with the cosmos, one who's communicating with your higher spiritual family, or are you a terrestrial being, only worrying about what's going on Earth? Unfortunately, and the master always said he had two types of students. He had celestial students who overstood and were trying to make contact with their spiritual family, and then he had the terrestrial-minded students who only worried about what's going on Earth. He said the celestial students, they would be the ones who make it and resurrect, but the terrestrial students are going to be bound to the Earth, and they suffer with the chaos on Earth. So this whole book, I read it before. I did a class on this before. For those who don't know, this is an excellent pamphlet. This is when we went from Sufis in the 80s to the 90s. We went to the ancient mystic order of Melchizedek, which was another level of spiritual teachings before we got to where we are now, which is the ancient Egyptian order. That's where we are now, which is the highest level of spiritual teachings. Ashuk, all of them. The master came teaching us back in the 1960s. It hasn't changed, family. So let's keep going. So where we at? So he says here on this particular book on page 14, he says, your solar system follows a sacred tone, thus vibrating harmoniously. Hold on. Thus vibrating harmoniously with the cosmos. You too can learn the sacred tone. For when you attune your soul to the celestial, you will be able to reach the divine love you have sought for many years, or ashuk. You have to connect with the creative force. That's what that tone the master has been teaching us. That's what our rituals are for. Our chanting rituals, our prayers, all of these things is the very fourth density being. But you got to do the work. You got to do all the things I say. You got to correct your diet. You got to have a positive mind. All of those things are the prerequisite to move yourself into this higher state of reality and consciousness. This is the ultimate goal. Let's see. He says right here, in this mystic order, the members strive towards becoming one with the real self and the oversoul, El Kalum, that's meant the all. Today we say Pa'ut, El Pa Pa'ut, means the same thing. The ancient mystic order of Melchizedek represents divine love, Ashuk. To understand Ashuk, one must forsake oneself and give up the I. All individualism is dissolved and all ego is exhausted. Do you hear that again? The ego, we get back to that. You have to let go of the ego. That creates the selfishness. That creates that individual mindset. And that's why we won't come together. The master said, what will free him? Love and unity. You can't have the love without letting go of the ego. Once you let go of the ego, then you can unite. Because then you have this desire to work with your people, to work. I keep saying, I'm out here doing the work the best I can, but 2 heads is better than 1, right? 3 is better than 2, so on and so forth. We are supposed to be working together so that we can reestablish our own communities again. The master teacher has said this over and over. We have to reestablish our own communities. We have to do it. Whilst he put this, hold on, real sec. We put this book out. Where we at? Actual facts number 18. What does it say? A nation of our own. He talks about the importance of us setting up our own nation. This is the Master Secrets number 18, parts 1. This is part 1. You got part 1 and part 2. A nation of our own. We have to have our own nation. We can't sit here under the control of the Mukasu, the Europeans, and then complain about them, and talk about how unjust they are, and you're not willing to set up your own. What a Christian say, God bless the child who has their own. We cannot be complaining about how chaotic these people are, because we have the ability to set up our own. We have the ability to do that, but you're not going to do it until you get rid of the ego, the individual mindset. You got to let go of the fear. That's Leviathan that works on us, that keeps us divided. I understand we're messed up. It's hard to work with us. So you look for those individuals. You look for people who have their mind on straight. Oh, hey, I'm working on my project that people don't want to support, the Nuwaubu Community Circle, the internet project that I've been working on for years. And beginning trying to convince people to support. Hey, what's that? Nuwaubu.org. We want to create our own encyclopedia project, our own social media project. Where's our social media right here? This is the social media platform. No one wants to sign up. It's not free like Facebook and the other social media. It's a paid platform. It's only $20 a year. It's not no big money. We can afford it, but that allows us not to be beholden to investors and advertisers. That this will only grow if you understand the importance of it and support it. Because they ban us on their platforms when we say things that they don't agree with, right? Well, the only way we can fix that is to set up our own platforms. That's why I did this. We have to have our own educational system. That's why I want to set up the encyclopedia. We set up the encyclopedia, then we can create a curriculum for our educational system. And we can then push that curriculum throughout all Black nations all over the planet, all throughout Africa and all throughout the Caribbean. Because right now, the educational curriculum that's in the school systems on the continent and here in the Americas, whether it be Jamaica, Barbados, Trinidad, Haiti, they're all still getting a European education that develops a European mindset. And our people have no consciousness of Blackness. We hate ourselves today. That's why we have all this Black on Black violence. That's why you see the chaos on the continent, because they're not educated about their own greatness, the greatness of being Black, and the importance of our culture versus the European culture. That's why the continent is suffering. I've talked about this many, many times. Many, many times. We're suffering because we're trying to be something we're not. But we have to set up our own social platforms. Why wouldn't you want to support someone like me, a Sabaean, who has a social platform? I mean, first of all, I need about 10,000 people to really start getting the economics to really build it out. Ultimately, we get 100,000 people on it. Imagine 100,000 people. We'll have a ton of money to build this out, and then to create the encyclopedia. Because to create the encyclopedia, you're talking about millions of dollars. This is how you can help. By selling it, by getting people to become members, to sign up, to support. Why not? Why not? Convincing our people they need to be on this, supporting this. But we need the numbers. We need the numbers. We need to get people to see the importance. We have to start doing for self. We can't keep complaining about, what the Mukasu is doing, what Trump and them is doing. What is this? Here you go, Trump. Trump direct attack on Black history. Trump wants to destroy Black history museums. He's attacking. There has a Black history museum. I want to go to it. They say it's beautiful, really nice. I think in Washington, D.C., but they're talking about he's attacking all of that, y'all. And they can attack it because white people pay for it, basically. This is their system, and they can rewrite because they want to rewrite history. He doesn't want to talk about all the injustice that white people have done to us and Native Americans. They don't want to talk about that. They don't want white children to be educated how unjust and how corrupt their system is. They don't want their children to learn that. And by Black people being here, we're a reminder to how unjust they are. They don't want to teach that. You control education. You control the minds. You control education. You control the minds. You control education. You control the minds. Remember, their power comes from keeping people in ignorance. That's how you get power, by maintaining ignorance. And you produce people who think like, well, that was this brother right here, African. No, this is a brother. I think he's a professor, whatever. No Black country will ever develop. No Black country will ever develop. He don't believe that Black countries can develop African countries because of how we think. In essence, he was saying that African nations, they can't compete with the European nations. That's what, and on one level, he's right. Because we're trying to be something we're not. And that's why we suffer. You have people like this. What's this? This is a sister. She loves capitalism. She talking about Africa needs to be capitalist. She has a video here. It says inequality is a great thing. This sister promotes that. She's a Black Republican or whatever. She's African, though. Same thing. They think inequality. This is how they messed our consciousness up. And you have a lot of black people who think like this because they all been under this European educational system. And they watch African countries try to copy it, and they're doing a horrible job. And the leadership on the continent just robs the people, steal the money, and they're just unjust because they're trying to be in a system that wasn't designed for us. We have to go back to our system. There's a brother who does an excellent bill on our system, an African scholar who explains the African system and how to reestablish that and get away from the European system. He did a TED talk. Let me see if I can pull him up. He did a TED talk. It's excellent bill on this brother, African scholar right here. African scholar. And he's talking about how this brother right here, he's breaking down legendary professor explains ancient Africa ruling systems and why modern ones do not work. He explains how our systems work because our systems was based on the community, not individualism. It's based on the collective whole. European systems are based on individualism, and that's why you got all this corruption on the continent. Everybody trying to get theirs. Everybody trying to get paid, and they get caught up in that mindset, and you forget about the good of the people. Why do you think everybody's talking about that brother out of Burkina Faso? Because it looks like he's trying to go back to how we think as Africans. I hope he is. He's getting a lot of positive publicity about it. What's his name is what's that brother name? Burkina Faso leader. And I've been watching and listening to him, and they say that they've been trying to get him because they don't want our people, African countries, to go back to our original systems. What's this? Ibrahim Torre, something like that. Yeah, this brother right here, But the Saudi Arabians offered to build this one right here. They offered to build masjids in Burkina Faso, and the brother, we don't need no more masjids. What we need is some schools and hospitals, he told them. They want to keep you under the spell, under that religious spell of ignorance. So this brother's getting a lot of positive publicity, because of the fact that he seems like, I don't know the facts, but he seems like, based on the reporting, that he wants to do for the people, as opposed to all the other African leaders. They're not doing anything for the people because they're trying to copy this European model. This European model does not work, but they all been miseducated. That's what it boils down to, is the miseducation of our people, gross miseducation. That's what my project is about. We have to have like an encyclopedia project where our people can get access to our real culture of how we operate and how we run our societies. And then we can create a curriculum and put it in the school systems throughout the continent. That's how you transform things. Now I have that brilliant idea, but I don't have the capital to do it. If I had the people, you guys support it, then we can get it done. We can get it done. As I keep telling you, I've been doing this for too long. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. But we have to restore our power. But the ego, let's talk about that. Let's talk about this ego thing, right? Because that's what's dividing us. That's what's separated from that divine love that we're talking about. We got to get back to the divine love, right? The divine love. This is another, same scroll. the celestial being, terrestrial being. He talks about the divine love again here. He says, let's see, this is the same way you can communicate from one side mortal to the other side immortal. He's talking about communicating with your ancestors on the higher dimensions, right? I'm not going to read all that, but he says humans have to become aware of these latent powers within themselves and learn to channel these energies and elevate in spirit, transforming from a physical earthbound being to one who is full of the pure essence. They then can seek the source of Ashuk and return to it, a pure spirit. So you see that again? You have to, in order to get Ashuk, this divine love, you have to connect with the creative force. That's why we haven't been doing what we should be doing as Sabaeans, right? Because they're not tapping into this divine force. We're just using the word Ashuk like it's some word. No, that's, you have to develop yourself spiritually to tap in. It's a force. It's an energy. Ashuk is an energy force. I've said this before in my lectures. If you study my lectures, you'll hear me talk about it a lot. It says here, this the source of all life is Ashuk, for it is moving inside you. That your essence, your non-ether spirit force is Ashuk, but you have to tap into it's your soul force. You have to tap into your soul force. What did the master say? Mind your mind for the jewel of your soul. You have to connect with your higher self, your oversoul. Your oversoul is divine love. It is the essence of love itself, that force, that creative force. Here again, this is on another page, 26, same book. Divine love is waiting to be brought to the surface. It is moving inside you. It is brilliantly green. That's the green light. Once you harness that green light energy, this is how you restore your power, opening your third eye, and you'll be the embodiment of Ashuk. This is a process, family. Spiritual work. But what are we dealing with? Well, let's see. What are we dealing with? We're dealing with a lot of challenges. The same book, I went to the Neatness and Purity book. Master talks about what we're dealing, our problems that we're dealing with. Where is he at here? Let's see. What is the spell? Question. What is the spell? He's talking about the spell. He says the Nubian people or Nadjaru people, right, or Sabaean people, not only here in the West, but all over the world, have been put under a hypnotic spell. It is the spell of the dollar bill, also known as the spell of Kingu or Leviathan, the great seal of the United States, right? And so that spell, he's talking about capitalism. Our people chasing material, right? Wealth. They're chasing money. Everybody's under that spell of money. You wouldn't need any money. I've said this many times before. What do you use money for? You use money for to buy resources, food, clothing, shelter. Where's the food, clothing, shelter come from? It comes from the earth, family. It comes from the earth. The earth don't charge you for anything, so why you need money? The earth doesn't charge us for anything, so why we need money? We have all the land you could think. We have a whole continent. The whole continent, of Africa. We have all that land. It has everything you need on the land. We don't need no money. You grow your food. You grow your clothes. You have the material to build your shelter. All we need is unity to work together. This is kind of what they said to Brother Ibrahim Toure in Burkina Faso. He's trying to galvanize all the people in his country for them to build everything themselves in-house. He's trying to show the example. It can be done. And everyone's being amazed. I don't know why. If you just work together, you can solve all your problems. Ain't that deep? I mean, it is. When you're under a spell, it's that deep. How people can't see something as simple as that. You don't need them. You don't need the Mukamsu's money. You just need unity to work together. We have the land. The continent is insanely big. Think about all the countries right here that we have in the Caribbean, Jamaica, Haiti, Barbados. Why do you think it's so chaotic in Jamaica? Because they've lost their freaking mind. All it comes from competing and trying to compete rather than working together. That's the spell. Our people, it's the ego, man. We're gonna talk more about this ego thing. He says right here, the spell is the reason why Nubians or Nagato people all over the world cannot unite. See that? What has happened is your people have been stripped completely of all their abilities, qualifications, and their spiritual faculties. You lost your spiritual knowledge, right? And placed into a state of materialism and discomfort. And that's how we live. We're all chasing money. Rather than chasing relationships, trying to work with each other, we want to chase money, be to ourselves. Because of the spell. It's that spell. What's the spell? Right here, 30 spirits. The master teacher put this scroll out, right? So it's these spirit forces within our bloodline. Paa Nabab, 30 spirits. This is the issue that's keeping us divided as a people. Right here on page 1, paragraph 7. It says, you must bind the 30 spirits that seek to control you. The very voices of your own Salafu ancestors who lived in the image of the beast and at Temwat, death, have been trapped in this hell. They're locked on the third density. These are the people in our bloodline who transition, family that's in your bloodline. They couldn't, because they lived this European culture. They didn't know how to resurrect to the fourth density because they didn't have none of that knowledge. So they're locked here. That's what all this stuff about ghosts, disembodied spirits, that's all that is. And our family members, the master teacher is saying, a lot of our family members are trapped. And they're speaking to you through your mind. Your desires are coming from them in your blood. That's where we're getting our desires and wants from them speak. We're connected to them spiritually still. And they're locked here. And, quite a few of them they're negative and disagreeable, quite a few of them. And this is a lot of our bad habits are coming from that. And this is what the master's been explaining. Because we lost our spiritual knowledge, we forgot this science. We don't understand this science I'm talking about. You should. He says right here, paragraph 9, you must bind them and free them from the realm of hell, that you will be free of their whispers into your heart and your mind, which affects your very actions each day of your life. The only way to free them is you have to become spiritually in tune with that realm. They're on what they call the plane of force and the spiritual plane. These are other layers of the third density before you even get to the fourth density. They're trapped in other layers of the third density. Is what people talk about astral projection. When they move out of their body, you're still in the third density, you're just at a higher vibration. This is where they're locked. Our family are locked. You have relatives that are trapped in that because they don't know how to reincarnate and they don't know how to resurrect into a higher realm. And once you learn how to do that, astral project to elevate, to back to a higher realm, to get out of that lock, that trap they're in. We have this. We have that ability. We had that ability. We forgot, but we had that ability. We had that ability, but the spell is really messed us up. It's really messed us up, but my goal is to give you as much knowledge on this, but so let's keep going. Where else we at? The essence of the spell. Right, so I want to get into it more. And this is Purity and Neatness book. He goes into it. The problem we're dealing with. So what does he say here on page 15? This is the Purity and Neatness book I'm in still. He says the spell has brought about a lack of discipline, disorganization, and chaos. The Nagato people today have lost their self-discipline from the way they act, walk, talk, dress, and eat. You are unable to bring yourself out of the state you are in because you always create excuses for being the way you are and the state you are in. For example, if you're a tramp or, sexually promiscuous people, you lack discipline because you cannot control your own desires. If you're an alcoholic, you lack discipline because you cannot control your drinking. And if you are a glutton, you lack discipline because you cannot control your eating. You always find excuses and blame someone else for your condition instead of you making the change and disciplining yourselves. You cannot stop your bad habits. Without discipline, this is all a part of the hypnotic spell. To keep the Nagato or Nubian suppressed and in a depressed state of mind. That is why I, Dr. Malachi Z.K. York, am here. For my job is to break the spell of ignorance that has been on Nubians or Nagato with the right knowledge, right wisdom, and the right understanding, which leads to right thinking, which is Nuwaubu, the science of sound right reasoning. First, you must begin with discipline, he says. Says discipline and organization. Question: how do we discipline and organize ourselves? Answer: self-control or discipline. And the ability to organize is a necessity in Nuwaubu. Every aspect of Nuwaubu is order and discipline. Order, remember, Ma'at. We live by the principles of Ma'at, which is about order, family. He says, from the physical to the spiritual. In order for the children of the Nathar to be accepted in the eyes of the Nathar, you must constantly make an effort to control the I and the ego and practice living a life of order and discipline. The ego is the self-arrogating aspect of the mind. It is the ego which separates the individual from unity with others and within himself or herself. For the ego asserts I-ness. Question: what is the ego? Answer: the ego is the greatest obstacle to peace, for it is that which occupies the mind with whether we are better or worse, possess more or less, have greater or less power than others. The ego is attended by pride, anger, delusion, greed, jealousy, lust, hatred, racism, and leadership. You notice all of the attributes of the European culture, right? Capitalism breeds all of those behaviors. Capitalism is all about greed and lust. You get angry when you can't get what you want in this society, or you get fired from your job. It creates delusions. Our people, you got all these children who want to be the next Michael Jordan or the next Jay-Z. It's delusional because only a handful of people can do that, and individuals waste their lives. They waste their lives trying to be something unrealistic that they're not going to be. And it creates a lot of depression in our society. It leads to a lot of drug behavior. I mean, the list goes on. This culture feeds your ego, family. He goes on to say the ego is the most difficult aspect of the mind to control, for its nature is such that it deludes even while one is striving to overcome it. When the ego is subdued, energies can then be utilized constructively for personal growth and the service of others, right? So the ego messes with your emotions. The ego messes with your emotions. Your emotions is what? Energy in motion. When you can control your ego, then you can use your emotions for positive things. That energy, you can use that energy for positive things. That energy comes from your soul force. That's why we say you sell your soul to the devil, to this corrupt society, because you're using your energy or your emotions to feed his system, to feed his forces, rather than using that energy to feed your own, to build for your own, to work together. but you got to control your ego. You got to control your greed, your lust, your desires, your wants, and live in harmony with Nuwaubu. That's why it's important to become one with the creative force. Then you embody that Ashuk. Then you have the desire to work with others. Of course, you always use sound right reasoning, right? You're not going to work with only those who are committed to the same things you are. Again, why do you think I put these lectures out? To show people how committed I am and what we should be doing collectively. I shouldn't be by myself doing this. But you have to be someone who's also sincere, who wants to get rid of their own ego. And it's not about you, but it's hard. Trust me, it's not easy. People, because these are habits that our people develop from childhood. And most of our people are scarred, and so they come into groups or relationships with baggage, and they bring that into the relationship, and they wind up destroying the relationship because they have these emotional baggage with them, because they've been through trauma and they never dealt with that trauma. And that's why they have a hard time in relationships. A lot of our people are like that. And because a lot of the groups I tried to work with, it all fell apart because of those issues. That's why I set up that's why I was like, well, you know what? If it's hard for us to work together, then I say I did this Nuwaubu.org thing and say, well, try to get people to support something positive. You don't have to put your physical time in. Well, you do, but you can do it on your own by helping support this work. Because the goal is to spread the culture of Wu-Sabat, but our people are being dumbed down through the educational system. We need something that can help raise the consciousness of our people en masse, because the doctrine of Nuwaubu is very surgical, very specific. It takes a certain state of mind, but you got to qualify that mind for this doctrine. Our people don't have general knowledge about Black history and culture. That's what the encyclopedia project is about, just giving our people some basic general knowledge about Black history and culture, because they're not getting in the school systems nowhere. Our people are learning. We can be the foundation for getting our people educated. This is it's a very important work. I hope you see that what I'm talking about, how important what I'm saying is. I hope y'all can see it. But let's keep going back. So he says, question: how can we uproot the ego? Answer: he says the ego can be uprooted by subduing it and suppressing it. It must be evident by now that being righteous, being a child of the Nathar, right, and of Pa'ut, meditating, being saved, or being religious entails far more than just making a claim, sitting with eyes closed and legs crossed, saying, I'm God, or lip confession. It demands rigorous introspection and or overhauling of one's personality, life patterns, and values, right? Because it's those forces that's moving through us, the 30 spirits, these forces that's creating these thoughts that's enhanced through the culture, European culture. We watch the TV, all the negative. We're messing the minds of our children up because of all of the stuff we expose them to in this culture. That's why they said it's a pornography epidemic among young children in the United States, because everyone has cell phones. I've talked about this before. It's so easy to get access to pornography on their phone. They're being exposed to thoughts and cultural lifestyles they should never know. Why do you think you have this what's this gay epidemic? All these children, young children, talk about they're gay or whatever. That never happened before, but they've been exposed to thoughts that their minds shouldn't have. That's what we're up against. You can only get rid of that if we have our own community, our own society, where we can control the flow of information. We think China is doing. There's a lot of things that China doesn't allow in their country because they know the importance of someone getting access to their minds, of their people. We have to do the same thing. So he says, petty, obstinate egoism behind the mask of the human personality is one of the biggest hurdles to overcome, for it veils the light within, supports surface thoughts, and perpetuates its own habitual feelings and actions. This lower, self-arrogant nature must be whittled down, for if it persists in retaining its limited force values, no amount of spiritual practice will bear fruit. Too often people profess of being righteous, yet they are unwilling to eradicate the lower nature and change the old habits. Clinging to them, they refuse to even admit the need for change. This type of individual will never make any real progress, for without radical transformation of the lower nature, one goes nowhere. It is not easy to change deeply ingrained habits. Y'all hear that? We know that. That's why people go into programs like drug addicts and alcoholics. They gotta go into programs. People who have, they can't control their eating or whatever. Like I said, the United States is known for a huge obesity problem issue. Can't control. It goes back to lack of discipline, lack of self-control. That takes a lot of spiritual work. It takes spiritual work. That's why we really shouldn't be doing this individually. We should be doing this as a group. You have power as a group. But it's hard to come together as a group when everybody's mentally messed up. And that's why the groups fall apart. So it's like you have to learn to fix yourself before you can come and be a part of a collective. But we still need the support, right? We still need the support. How do you think we're going to get the master teacher out? We're not going to get the master teacher out the way we're operating right now. That's why we have not been able to get the master teacher out, because our minds are still messed up. That ego mindset, and trust me, I've been dealing with a lot of Sabaeans, and our people, a lot of Sabaeans they can't control their ego. They really can't. They really can't. I've seen it constantly. And it's sometimes very difficult to deal with certain brothers and sisters because their minds are messed up. They're not really studying this doctrine, as I was saying before. So many of our people's minds are messed up. And a lot of Sabaeans are like that. But we're all we got. So we're all we got. We have to solve this problem. There is no other way. We have to solve this problem because we've been really messed up. We've been miseducated, and we're all we got. I want to show, what is this video? It's a video of this sister. I've talked about this once before, how messed up we are mentally. And this is what we're up against. Our people have been miseducated to hate themselves. I want to pull up a video. This brother, Mark Lamont Hill, he used to be a Nuwaubian who left. He said he left the doctrine when the master got accused and with the prison stuff. And he left. And again, you don't leave right knowledge. If you leave our doctrine, that's because you never comprehended it in the first place. There's nothing more important than right knowledge. Who rejects that? That doesn't make any sense. How can you reject right knowledge? You only leave it because you didn't comprehend it. I want to find this video because he's a news reporter. And he interviewed this sister. Another said who's a Republican, and it's the stuff that came out her mouth. It just goes to show the work that we have to do as Sabaeans, that we have to put a stop to this miseducation of our people because they're being literally conditioned to hate themselves. Our people hate being black. They hate being black because they've been raised under white supremacy, racism, white supremacy. That's why none of our women want to wear their natural hair. You got all these black men chasing white women. You know what Umar Johnson talked about, the snow bunny crisis, because of they've been socialized to think like that through the media. The media and the educational system is the biggest thing. These movies, man, it brainwashes, and we're letting our children at young ages grow up on these videos and cartoons that they're being exposed to. And after 13 years of that, 10 years of that, 20 years of that, their mind is messed up by the time they're 18, 19. What they say? 20% of black men voted for, 20% of black men who voted for Donald Trump, a known white supremacist. Donald Trump is a known white supremacist, and 20% of voting black men voted for him. Now, how did that happen? That happened because of they can't even how can I say reason out why on earth you're going to support someone who does not like you, who actually hates you. You know, Donald Trump is the epitome of white supremacy. What is white supremacy? White people on top, everyone else on the bottom. They don't want to share power with us. And you're going to vote for someone like that? First of all, you hear me always say, the fact that black men voting for white men to rule them tells you we're mentally messed up. The fact that black people in general, by the millions, vote for white people to rule them tell you we're mentally messed up. And that comes from the educational system. Only the doctrine of Wu-Sabat can change that. We're the only ones that have a real comprehensive culture to properly re-educate our people on how to love themselves and reestablish our environments, our communities, our nations, if we follow it. But again, what do we say? You have to uproot that ego, because we're not going to get anything done if we don't get our egos in check. That's the key. You got to get our egos in check, or nothing else will get done. Nothing else will get done.
Located between the border of Spain and France.
Oh, I clicked on the wrong video. Hold up. Here it is.
Newsweek hired Redfield and Wilton Strategies to do a poll in July, and it found that 70% of Americans believe that children in schools should be taught to feel proud of their country. At the same time, 57% think institutional racism still exists in the United States. So, Kim, if most Americans believe national pride is something we should teach, cool, maybe we should teach that. But also, if 57% of the nation believes that institutional racism is real, shouldn't we teach about that as well?
Well, I think it's up to a teacher's discretion, honestly, in the classroom. And this is one of the side effects, I think, of the COVID pandemic, right? You had a lot of people that were able to see exactly what the curriculum was in each school because so many kids were learning virtually at home. And so I think it was a good thing, right? Now, I do believe that teachers probably should teach the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I think that's what they're trying to do in Florida. I have to say, I'm on Governor Ron DeSantis' side here. I know people are probably not shocked to hear that. But I do believe that we should.
Okay, so this is a black sister, lives in Maryland, I think, and she's a Republican. And I think she's from Africa, another sister from Africa, her family, I think. And again, she's a product of miseducation. Now, she's supporting the governor of Florida, who's talking about he basically want to get rid of black studies, you know, black history being taught in Florida. And it's like, and she supports that. This is what I'm saying, that the consciousness, that you can't, unfortunately, you can't really fix an adult, you know, because the mind is almost lost by the time an adult has to choose the culture of Wu-Sabat. There's something has to stir within them, but we can save the children who don't know anything. You got to get them young. Now, I don't think that's possible in America like that because of the control. The continent is the solution for us, right? Africa is the solution where we can affect. There's millions of children on the continent where we can have an effect on the educational system there and change. Because Wu-Sabat can be the curriculum for our people, because they need it. In fact, they're talking about that in Burkina Faso. They need teachers. They need educators in their country. And a lot of African nations need it, and they really don't have an effective curriculum, which is something we could create. That goes back to what my project is with, if I could get the people to support the Encyclopedia Project or our become members, going back to becoming a member, you go to nuwaubu.org and click become a member, right? And hold on, you won't be able to see it right now because I got that video up, so you won't be able to see me change the screen. But let me go through the video and then we can go back. But it's about becoming members. If we can get people to support that, then like I said, we need thousands of people to support it, but we can develop the capital to create a curriculum, and to put those curriculums in school systems. It can be done if we can show people the importance of our work. But let's keep listening to this sister and hear Mark Lamont Hill, debate with her. And
should be teaching some of the good parts that came out of slavery. And I say that is because there are some people that were born into slavery and they were able to take those skills that they learned and went on to be entrepreneurs. There were some of the inventions that we have today, like the folding chair with the bookcase in the back, that was invented by a man named Alexander, who was living in Lynchburg, Virginia. He was born into slavery, but he knew that there was a need there because of the church that he attended. Had they not been slaves, no, they would not have learned those skills. But of course, I am not saying that slavery was a job program. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah, but this sister said that there was good parts to slavery. You see the mind? What kind of good parts to slavery? And she's talking about because we've learned skills, and what kind of insane kind of thinking is that? What skills? There's nothing our people learned in slavery that we didn't already know on a continent. Go just look at King Tut, right? King Tut, when you look at King Tut's tomb, all the furniture and things that thing was 3,000 years ago. He had a beautiful chair you find in the King Tut's tomb. He had these cabinets or whatever they found in his tomb. Beautiful furniture. What the hell is she talking about? Some brother creating a folding chair. What, we couldn't figure that out in Africa? I'm like, you had to be. This is the kind of miseducation we're talking about. This is what I'm saying, that she would say something and just rewind that if you need to listen to that again. That slavery, there was good parts to slavery. There were no good parts to slavery. That's insanity. And this is what I'm talking about, the insane kind of thinking our people have been subject to under white supremacy. It's insanity. And I don't really like the way the brother Mark Lamont Hill interviews with her and told Emily, this brother had access to right knowledge. But again, he was young when he was in the doctrine. So I give him leeway because I'll take it. He didn't understand. And I will admit, you didn't have brothers like me helping younger brothers understand the doctrine, helping them, educating them and moving along. You really didn't have that. And I argue you don't really have too many brothers like that today who are trying to help people really comprehend our doctrine. They don't understand, the work that we're doing and the importance of our work. But for a sister like this to sit there and say that slavery, there was good parts to slavery, I mean, that's absolutely insanity. No good parts of slavery. Keep listening when she looks at more. She says more. It's just crazy. It's sad, actually.
I get that, but here's my concern with that. If I tell the story of American slavery in the abstract, in a vacuum, sure, right? We could talk about all the nuances of it. But this is a country that has historically whitewashed slavery. This is a country that consistently pretends that bad things we're not doing, but many other people have done. So against that backdrop, if we then encourage teachers or encourage curriculum designers to focus on the good that came out of slavery, it becomes another way to sort of whitewash or to understate just how severe an impact slavery had. We are still to this day harmed by slavery. We still to this day pay an economic and social and cultural debt to what happened to us in slavery. So if all that stuff is true, then a textbook spending time focusing on the fact that some people got some skills out of it, to me, it's time we could spend talking about the need for reparations. It's time we could spend talking about the lingering impact of slavery. It's time we could spend talking about the people who entered slavery with skills and who were actually selected for their skill sets on the continent of Africa. We can talk about all that stuff in a finite amount of time rather than talking about a few people who were blacksmiths who were able to get jobs when, in fact, there's so many laws and programs stop people from getting access to jobs, to freedom, to justice, to food, clothing, shelter, equality, all that stuff, even after so-called emancipation.
Now, let me say this. This is only a discussion because we're not in our society, in our communities, controlling our own educational system. This only becomes a discussion because we're begging white people to allow us to teach Black history and culture. And white people don't want to do that. And that's what I mean. That's the spell. Us trying to convince people who've been our enemies to be better. And they just can't. They can't. Listen, you can't have equality. That's impossible. You can't have equality because look at sports. Equality, if you gave Black people the same equality, same opportunities, the Europeans wouldn't be able to compete with us. We would beat them 9 times out of 10. Slavery is a way of cheating. You're forcing people to work for you for free to build your wealth while they are in poverty. That's cheating economically, economic cheating. And the Europeans have not stopped economic cheating to this very day. What do you think Trump's tariffs is all about? If you're paying attention to the news, he's putting these tariffs on because all these countries are rising up economically, and white people can't take advantage the way they used to be able to take advantage, right? European powers, and so it's like, nah, we can't cheat no more. We can't take advantage of you guys the way we used to. Now you guys are beginning to catch up. China is beginning to catch up. We got, like I said, India is on the rise, and Africa is beginning to wake up. They're trying to figure out a way to maintain their power and their position. So they're not equal. All they ever done is cheat. So our people debating over something that I would argue is kind of silly and foolishness. I say again, what do Christians say? Christians teach God bless the child who has their own. But let's keep going. Let's see what she says to his response.
Yeah, well, Mark, look, I still believe you teach the good, the bad, and the ugly. You teach all of it. And so I do have to ask you, without slavery in this country, which, again, you had Blacks purchasing Blacks, you had Blacks selling Blacks, you had Native Americans purchasing Blacks, you had Blacks purchasing Native Americans. It goes on and on and on. And I think that conversation around reparations does get very complicated. And I know that there are a lot of people that advocate for that. But beyond that, I have to ask you,
what's complicated about it?
Where would you be today without slavery?
That's a great question. That's what we call one of those counterfactual hypotheticals, right? It's hard for me.
That's not a great question. What do you mean? Where would we be without slavery? We would be in Africa, rebuilding or developing our societies. Imagine where we would be if the Europeans didn't invade us. You got to keep in mind, we had the Malian Empire, we had the Ghana Empire. The last one was the Songhai. The Songhai fell, I think, in 1591, where the Moors, now this is a thing on the Moors, got help from the Queen of England, right, to attack the Songhai Empire. And that's when we really fell, and that opened the door for slavery, honestly, when the Songhai fell and all. But if that never had happened, with the development that the Moors were doing, the development of Songhai, Timbuktu was a learning center and an educational center. If we didn't have these invasions in our land, we would be a powerful people today, because we were a powerful people, you know? And so if none of that stuff existed, invasions, we wouldn't be in this predicament. So again, the only reason why their sister said you got people thinking that slavery was some kind of benefit. And again, because of the miseducation, it goes back to what I'm saying, the miseducation of our people. It's sad and it's insane. I'm gonna stop right here with this lecture. I'm like, you gotta listen to, what's that other brother who's really they call him the Black History guy, I think they call him. He's really good. He's really good. And he I forget his name. I think it's Robert Walker. Let's see if I can end this to screen. Let's see. Go back here, screen here. Hold on. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it just goes back to the project that I'm talking about, the project at nuwaubu.org. I was saying before, you click on become a member, and that goes back to there. Become a member. Let's see. Right here at nuwaubu.org. And you have the membership. You have the $19.99, which is $20 a year, or the discounted membership, $99, and you get 5 years plus 1 year free. So $99. This is what. Now imagine we get 10,000 people to sign up for this. $99, you get 5 year membership, really 6 year membership, and this will give us the economics we need to really build out the site. To build out the site, to create an encyclopedia, to really create something to educate our people. Imagine children having access to a culture encyclopedia like this to do their reports. Students, high school students, college students, to get access. Our people don't know basic history. That sister you just listened to, thinking that slavery was some kind of benefit, that is insanity. But that comes out of what? White supremacy, this miseducation of our people. You got all these adult blacks running around absolutely ignorant. They're just ignorant. And it's sad. And this is what the master teacher's been up against, this level of ignorance of our people. But you really can't do anything unless you can affect the educational system. And I'm saying we can affect the educational system on a continent and in the Caribbean. Not countries like America that's controlled by white people, because they push back. So we do it in countries controlled by black people, But we have to reestablish the Sabaean nation. We have to come together. But remember that battle with the ego, right? That battle with the ego. The master teachers made it clear. Before I close, the continent is the solution for us. He's talked about this. The continent is the solution. Where we at? Where we at? He talks about this. The continent is the solution. This is what is this? page 38. Yeah, 38 was his actual facts. Number 5, actual facts number 5 called the Celtics, right? Actual facts number 5 called the Celtics. We got 38 right here. Paragraph 66. Let's go. It's paragraph 65. This good. He says these are Paa Nabab Yaa-nanan, the beautiful words, which is being given by Paa Nadjaru Amanub Re Akbata Amun Re, will break the 6,000-year-old spell of Leviathan and will help you to realize or utilize your mental power and physical strength for Africa's independence and well-being. Africa has everything and more than other parts of the planet Earth has. Africa does not need outsiders. It needs insiders. Africans to return to her with all they have learned outside of her and build our own. I showed you how easy it is when we work together on projects, but it's the spell of self-hate and love of the Caucasian and his image of himself as your Lord and Savior. And if you step back and look at the world, you will see the Caucasian or the Mukasu can't even help or save themselves, let alone you, Negroids. He really hates you and has much enmity between the Nagaru race and the Mukasu race. They will never treat you fair. They must instill fear in you of them to rule you. You hear that? And you see it now on the media. If anyone's paying attention, Africa for Africans. That's where our power is. That's where we go. I know brothers talking about the Native Americans, but we lost. They conquered us here. So we regroup, go to the continent where we still have a lot of power and control to have all the resources that we need and build. And then we can eventually get the American. Another Paa Nadjaru. This is a Paa Nadjaru. We're at page 17. Paa Nadjaru. What's this one? This is called Paa Nadjaru, the argument. Paa Nadjaru, the argument. Right? He says the same thing. Paragraph 193, 194. He says, I only seek Africa for Africans. All others can visit, right? We got to get back to the continent. The master's been talking about the continent. The power is on the continent. Our power is on the continent. We got to get back to the continent. That's what Africa can help free the master teach if we did it right. But we have to get ourselves right. We're not functioning, the way we can and should be functioning, family. So that was a lot. We covered a lot. We talked about a lot. I know we got to be doing these discussions a lot more, a whole lot more. These are some of my notes I'm looking over to make sure I covered a lot of what I needed to cover, but yeah, we let's say page 44. Let me just say this. We got to rule ourselves. We got to get back and set up our own systems, and this is the essence of our doctrine. It's about doing for ourselves, ruling ourselves and stop worrying about them. What's that brother Phil Scott? He said them folks. That's what he calls them Mukasa, them folks, or whatever that to be worrying about them folks. And we gotta work. We're worrying about us. We gotta do for us, man. We don't need anybody. We just need each other. That's real talk. All we need is each other. That's there's nothing else. We need each other. We gotta, deal with each other. No one else. And that's where we at. That's where we at. We just got to deal with each other. So I don't know what else to say. Other than that, we talked about a lot. You know, and the master's saying right here, the paragraph was that he said here their judicial system is unjust, their education system is unjust, their medical health system is unjust, their political system is unjust, their penal system is unjust, their financial system is unjust, their media system is unjust, their theatrical system is unjust, their religious system is unjust. Our system is about justice, about ma'at. You know, the fatara al radat, the natural rule of nature, is mi'at, right? Mat, which uradu rules all natural matter. You know, what did he say? We as Nuwaubu live by the natural rules of natural nature, ma'at, which is order. It's about justice, order. You know, this system is not. So why are we messing around? You got to overcome the ego. You got to tap into ashuk, and you'll have this love for blackness and this desire to want to work with your people. That's how we do it. That's the only way, family. Until then, support, thumbs up, right? You know, spread the word, let people know, comment. You guys are not making comments. You're not studying. You got to make the comments. Talk to me. This is how we can help each other. We all need each other. I can't do this on my own. We all need each other's support. Spread the word. Spread the word, family. Spread the word. And until then, much love. I hope this helps. I do, Moisar.